All right, I'm back again. Had to check the character names again. Yeah, so John Blackthorne is the main character, but they call him Anjin, so that's why I forgot what his name was. It's been a couple, like I said, it's been like 4 months since no, maybe 3 weeks since the last episode I saw. So in this one, this is episode 5. Episode 8 comes out today. So in episode 5, John has gotten his new title, so he gets a home for himself, and he gets a concubine who is a woman in episode 3 whose husband disrespected the regents. I think he disrespected Ishido. So him and his son, who is also her son, of course, were killed. So she at first doesn't want to be his concubine. She's begging, what is it, Miracle? She's begging her like, oh no, please don't. The main female lead. She's begging her like, please don't let me have to serve this barbarian. And she explains to her like, oh, this is what Toranaga wants. Toranaga appointed him, and since your husband served Toranaga, you could honor him by doing what continuing to serve Toranaga and doing what Toranaga wants. And this is what Toranaga wants. So at first, when John comes back to the town that he was first captured in, he's looking for his men that were captured with him. And of course, they're not there anymore. They've been moved to Edo, I think they got moved to. And he tries to go to a ship. They don't let him go to a ship. They say all of it is Toranaga's. So then he starts to feel like he's a prisoner now, but in a better house. When he sees the house he gives him, he's like, I don't want all of this. I want my men. She's like, you agreed to train these men for 6 months. And he's like, oh, blah, blah. He's upset. So he's doing like he usually does. He's like not aware of the customs and just doing things that they perceive as rude. Like he's walking on the moss instead of walking on the stone. But he's like, all right. He like kind of just like angry at the thought. So he just starts walking on the stones back to his house now. And eventually he gives the woman whose husband was killed, who is the main character's, the main woman, her cousin. He gives her his guns, and she's like, oh, she didn't really want them, but he gives her his guns because in the beginning, when the leader of the village's nephew, who was the one who was like treating him like shit in the first episode, comes to pick him up, he has his guns. They're arguing because he's like, you gotta give me your guns. He's like, no, you guys walk around with swords all the time. It's different. Of course, they don't speak the same language, so the women are translating. So he's like got his guns pointed. They're all about to start fighting. Finally, his courtesan, or the woman that stays with him now, she asks for the guns. He gives her the guns, so then she could hold the guns. But then the guy's nephew asks her for the gun. She's like, give me the gun. And she just points it at him and tells him to leave. So he bows, he leaves. It was a whole thing. So this episode is basically about him teaching them how to use cannons. They want to know the tactics. And the guys are saying, no, my men, they don't need to learn how to load and fire weapons. They learned this from the Portuguese. And so they asked him to like explain their warfare tactics, but he was a naval officer. So he tells them like, I did naval warfare. And he was like, you could take my cannons and put them on land and aim and shoot. And they were like, cannons are inaccurate. It doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. And then he shoots the cannons and he's hitting the targets dead on. And that's when they realized the English cannons are much better than the Portuguese cannons. As you can see in the design of the cannons, they have a spiral barrel, which is rifled barrels. So of course they're going to shoot more accurate than the Portuguese cannons. So now everything is pretty much him just teaching them about cannons and stuff like that. But also the guy who was like playing both sides the whole first 4 episodes, he's worried because he's like, he clearly wants to take Taranaga's spot, but he's, keeping up appearances. And Taranaga's son is there too. Taranaga's son is there also. But he's going to have to play a big part in the end of the episode. So they're plotting, and that's when his nephew tells him, like, just do the training, train the men. They're still your men. So when Taranaga is impeached, you'll have the army to give to Ishio with the men that are trained in those tactics, and he'll take you back, But that's when a messenger from Ishio shows up and calls that guy back to Ito to say that he's got to answer for helping Taranaga escape and blah, blah, blah. He thinks, because they don't realize he's still trying to be on his side, but the way Taranaga is, he like got him in a rock and a hard place. He had to help him, and he didn't tell him the whole plan, so he didn't know that he was actually helping Taranaga escape, which is, that's what I mean about the writing in this show. It's really good, So he's trying to figure out how to do this. So he tells the messenger, stay and watch our cannons, blah, 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 and I'll show Lord Ishido, the power that we have, right, blah, blah, blah. So he's telling this guy, trying to show Ishido that we're getting these good cannons and stuff like that. And then he's telling Taranaga's son, like, we'll show them how we use our cannons, and then they'll fear our power, blah, blah, blah. He's still playing both sides. Taranaga's son is barely buying it, but he's definitely not showing that he isn't buying it, which is the whole premise of the title of the episode, The Eightfold Fence. And so that brings me to the idea of the Eightfold Fence. When John, at night, he goes out to the hot spring and he goes to take a bath. And that's when he's approached by, I know I'm butchering his name. I'll probably have to just put it in the description, because if I stop the video to check again, then I have to start all over. And like I said, my video editing skills, I haven't really even tried to edit a video yet, so I don't know. It's been years, so I don't know if I remember. I have new programs and all of that, So I think her name is Miracle or something like that. And she shows up, the main woman who in the story, she shows up while she's looking for him. She didn't realize he was in the spring, so she's she's blushing, of course, at first or whatever when she sees him, and he tries to cover himself. But then they start talking, and they're talking about different places, and she tells him about the Eightfold Fence, which she says, in our land, basically, to summarize what it is just saying that they all build a wall inside themselves where they hide who they truly are and their real feelings, so that they can keep up appearances. Because once again, so they don't express any wrong emotions, because this is what they get a place where you say the wrong thing to someone and they'll just cut your head off for like being disrespectful. So, you gotta hide how you really feel. If you thinking about, man, F this guy, you might not want that guy to know, or you definitely don't want that guy to know that you're feeling, even though, since most of the characters are like that, they have an idea that that's how you're feeling, but there's plausible deniability. They can't prove that you're against them, so they can't do something against you, because then that would be a blatant thing. You know what I mean? So that's what she says, our kindness and our smiles and everything, don't be fooled by them, And so now comes a conversation between Taranaga's son and the the guy who's playing both sides nephew. I think his name is Emo, the nephew. And he is basically talking to him, and he's like, what is your father gonna do? Lord Ishido's men is here, and blah, blah, blah. He's like, we should tell your father. And he's like, oh, Taranaga's son is like, oh, everybody thinks I don't know what to do, and I need my father. They think I'm useless. Don't tell my father. I'll take care of this, you know. So in the morning, oh, almost forgot. So Blackthorn, him and Miracle talking. She asks him about England or the city he was born. He tells us it was London. And she's like, what if we were there? He's like, oh, I bring you to see my queen. She's like, would she accept us? She was like, oh, of course. You know, he's like, yeah, me and the queen, she like that, man, be like that. So he goes back and he goes to sleep. His the woman who's now his woman, she turns off the lights for him, and then that's when Miracle comes into the room, and they end up hooking up. So in the morning, he's sitting with the one who's supposed to be his girl now. They're drinking tea, and then Mirica shows. I don't know how to pronounce her name. I keep forgetting. She shows up, and he tries to talk to her. He's like, "Oh, I feel great after a night of good company." And she's like, "Oh yeah, the court must have been good." So he's like, he doesn't know that they're friends. She's saying like, "Oh, my cousin sent that woman for you." He's like, "I'm confused," but then he's just like, "Hey, the eightfold fence. I'm just, whatever's going on here, we don't need to talk about it out loud." And then when Ishido's messenger arrives in the morning, they go to the field. They're supposed to be giving a demonstration of the cannons. Taranaga's son starts yelling. He pulls out his sword. He's like, "You being here is an insult to my father," and blah, blah, blah. And, the guys playing both sides. It's like, calm down, put your sword away. Like, you can't do this. And he tells everybody, like, move. Everybody's like, move. And he just tells his men to fire the cannons, and they slaughter, like, just eviscerate Ishido's men. And he's like, this is not how he's on the ground, half his body, no arms. This is not how samurai fight. And Taranaga's son just beheads him. The people in the village are pissed. They're cleaning up bodies. They're like, why do we have to deal with this cannon fire all that? I mean, the cannon fire wouldn't really bother me that much. I mean, I guess it's a loud noise in the background, but they're like, cannon fire. It's not like the cannon's shooting at you. They're like, cannon fire all day and blah, blah, blah. And now we're cleaning up dead bodies in the field, and why do we deserve this? Then they hear an army coming. Like, oh crap, it's an army. Taranaga shows up with a huge army with him. Everybody's happy. And Bunto is there. Banto is there. And if you don't know, that is... I'm butchering all these names. In the next video, I won't. But in this one, I am. He is Mirika's husband, who everyone assumed was dead, because the last time they saw him, he was surrounded by like 40 guys, and he was running to the docks. They were sailing away. Blackthorn is like, you could turn around, you could save him. But Taranaga just gives him the bow, like, he fought well, my soldier, And he just fighting on the docks, 40 guys on the docks of Edo. And so it's like, when she sees her husband, she's like, oh my goodness. It's like she just cheated on him last night because she thought she was dead. She stayed real for however many days. I mean, if he's dead, he's dead. So it's nothing to be staying loyal for. But she's not dead. And what's crazy is he was in the city surrounded by men. Now, John looks over like, oh my goodness. I wouldn't have even looked over. That dude was just he had to beat those 40 guys. I mean, I didn't see the next episode. Maybe there's another way. But I know that Taranaga did not go back to Edo to get that man. So somehow he escaped being surrounded by those 40 guys, maybe. They captured him. I don't think so. I think he beat all 40. And John is looking like, yo, oh man, this ain't good. I mean, maybe he thinks he's like, oh, I could beat him with the hands, but that's not how they fight out there. And he knows it. So now he's going to have some problems. Like I said, this is why I had to wait. Because I would have been pissed if I had to wait another week. Not pissed, but I'd be like, oh man, I gotta wait another week, but I don't. I'm about to watch the next episode right now. I just wanted to give my ideas on, my thoughts on episode 5, The Eightfold Gate.